And you should be on now. There you go. Got 7 people waiting. All right, get out of your shot. 1 sec, let me just adjust. All right.
Morning, everybody. Hope everyone's doing great on this, what seems like finally spring, beautiful Sunday morning. As always, it's actually not even 10 o'clock yet, so we're still gonna wait a few minutes. What time do you have?
It's 58, so maybe
Yeah,
a little intro.
Yeah, so we'll probably wait about 2 minutes before we get into the movement portion, get started. So for those of you who are here, if you have any questions, feel free to prop them up because we do have a few minutes of time. So feel free to ask me anything, maybe in regards to the last class we did, maybe the part 1 of our hip series, maybe you have questions about that in terms of some of the movement patterns that maybe you didn't understand or didn't have trouble with, or even questions that aren't related to that, completely fine, because we still have a few minutes of time.
I have a question, Jen.
Bilal has a question.
How does this hips part 2 relate to hips part 1 if I wasn't paying attention to the wonderful blurb you said the first time?
So his question was, how does this hips part 2 relate to hips part 1? Very, very good question. Hips are actually probably my favorite topic because there's so much you can do with them if you are really creative and you understand how the hip actually works. So this was only in 2 parts. I could have literally done it in like 12 parts, but I did it in 2. So how part 2 relates to part 1? Part 1 was a lot of our range of motion prep work. So part 1 we did, again, I negate using the word stretch. I'm not a huge fan of the word stretching because it comes with a lot of implications and promises and ideas that stretching is going to fix everything. But part 1 we explored all the range of motion or all the ranges or planes of movement that the hip joint goes through. So for example, we can pull the leg up to our chest, we can extend the leg back behind us, we can circle it, we can take it away from the body towards the body. So part 1 we just sort of introduced, or I introduced you to the planes of movement that the hip moves through. And then we were going through kind of releasing the muscularity that allows us to move into those planes of movement. So part 2 today is we're going to take those planes of movement and now we're going to learn how to create tension in them, which is super, super important. A lot of people believe that your hips need to be, these dance or gymnastic hips where you have to be incredibly flexible and have excessive amount of range to have a healthy hip joint. But sometimes this is furthest from the case. Sometimes having too much mobility in the hips will lead to ligaments that overstretch. And ligaments, they can only go so far. And once they pull past their brink for you, they don't go back to their original shape. And if the ligaments are overstretched and unstable, then what will happen is the bones that are holding those ligaments in place will start to destabilize over time, which can lead to some common issues that you may have heard of: side joint dysfunction, pelvic upslips and downslips, partial dislocations of the hip joint, labral tears of the hips. So having too much mobility is not always a good thing. So today I'm taking the range of motion that we learned or created in part 1, and today we're going to learn how to create tension in that range. So that's basically the theme of the class.
Awesome. That really answers my question.
That answers
very thoroughly.
So I think we can get started, yeah. I think. So again, just to kind of recap, today we're doing, well, first of all, hi everybody. Welcome to your Sunday morning edition of Mobility Flow Live. Today is going to be part 2 of our 2-part series on the hips. Part 1, like I was saying, we explored range of motion, taking the hip joint through all of its planes of movement, which is several. And unfortunately for a lot of us, we're actually only taking the hip through one range throughout the day, which is sitting with the knees bent and the hips coming close to the chest, which is going to mimic the action of sitting. So we need to be able to take that hip joint through all of its planes of movement for it to be considered a healthy, functional hip. So today what we're going to do in part 2 is we're going to apply a little bit more strengthening to all those planes of movement. So we're going to do a lot of tension-based work. We're going to explore the relationship between the abdominals and the muscles in the front of the hip. So hip crease muscles, which would be hip flexors, into the thigh, hip flexors. And then we'll also explore the relationship between the glutes and the hip extensors, which is our ability to take our leg behind us, which is actually the action of walking. When we walk, one hip goes forward, one hip goes back. So we're going to explore how the glutes allow us to extend the hip behind us. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Other than that, I think we can dive right into it. All you're going to need is your 2 blocks for today. Doesn't matter the thickness of the blocks, just have 2 of them with you. Cool. All right, guys, so we are going to get going. So we're actually going to start a little bit differently than we commonly start when we start on our back. We're actually going to start seated today. So you're going to come to almost like a diamond shape with your legs. We're not going to be too crazy with this to start because we are warming up and some of us just woke up, so our bodies are feeling a little stiff. So you're just going to start with a diamond shape and you're just going to kind of hang out here for a moment. So this would be more of like a pulled in, kind of like heels towards the body movement. Here I want to take my legs a little further out in front of me like a diamond. So they're a little further away. And I want to think of bringing my big toes and my heels to touch. And then all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to kind of rock back and forth. So I'm kind of rocking back and forth on my butt bones. Okay. And I'm just warming up the hip because rotation is usually where most people struggle. And I actually did get a lot of comments from people about the 90-90 position that we explored, that it was really, really tough for them. And I was expecting that because it is a very, very difficult position to get in if you lack rotation. But most of you were able to still do it, but found some muscle cramping happening. Super normal. Okay, now that I have that established, now I want to see if I can pull this in a little bit closer towards me. Now everyone's range of motion is going to be different. Feel free to be a little further away from the body. If you want to kind of plug your heels right in towards the body, it depends how much your legs are going to fall open. If you felt like your knees came up towards you and your back rounded, you probably want to maintain that diamond shape. If you can sit up relatively tall, you can pull up there. Maybe you want to grab your feet and find a little lift of your chest. Now here we're just going to work with 2 spinal movements. Okay, we're going to work to arch the back and we're going to work to round the back as we explore rotating our hip joint outward. So I'm going to go ahead and either I'm grabbing my feet. Feel free to grab your ankles. If you're here, you can grab your shins, your knees, whatever feels good to you. All right, so first I'm going to start with a spinal arch position. So I want to think of dragging my shoulder blades down my back, lifting my chest, and looking up towards the ceiling. Then as I round, I want to think of kind of rounding through the upper back, bringing the chin to my chest, and letting it feel like my butt is almost scooping underneath me. We're going to do a few of these with the breath. So I'm going to inhale, arch, shoulders go back, collarbones go broad, exhale, round. 2 more there, inhale, arch. Exhale, round. 1 more, inhale, arch. Elbows may bend. Exhale, round. 1 more for good luck, inhale, arch. And exhale. Fantastic, beautiful. Okay, all right. Now what I'm going to have you guys do is you're going to go ahead and grab one of your blocks and you're going to go ahead and prop up on this. So I'm going to sit on one of my blocks, okay? And I want to start with my legs as close in towards my block as I can. Depending on how much ankle mobility you have, you might be able to pull your heels right in. You might need to bring them further away. That's fine. Now all I want to do is take my right leg and send it out in front of me. And from there, I might be able to pull my left leg in a little bit further. So now we're going to work on creating a little bit of tension through what's commonly referred to as the hip flexors. Some of us don't even know what our hip flexors are, but they're more so the muscles in the front. They go from the low back all the way to the knee. So here I want to have a little bit of a rounded position. So I'm going to take my arms out in front of me, and I want to think that I'm creating almost like a hollow body. So I want to let my front rib cage kind of drop down towards my belly button, and I want my shoulder blades to move away from my chest as if I'm reaching forward in front of me. Now think that you're almost trying to take your belly button and push it to your low back spine. Then I want to flex my ankle, and I want to see if I can lift my leg as high as I can. For some of you, it's not going to lift very high. It's only going to come up half an inch. For some of you, it's going to come up quite high. It depends. And I want to think about really rounding through my back, and I want to hold the leg there. I want to think about tensing my quads. So pushing my quad muscle down, hollowing through the belly, and we're going to hold here for 5 more seconds. Good, and then set the leg down. Now don't lose the tension, so don't stop and just settle in between each rep. I want you guys to hold the tension each time, okay? We're going to try 2 more like that. I'm going to lift the leg and I'm going to hold. Now your leg might quiver, it might shake. That's incredibly normal. That's the tension in the hip flexors being built. So I want to hold there. Think about the hollowness through the abdominals. And again, the connection between the abdominals and all those muscles in the front of the leg. Hold for 5. Good. Settle down, strong. 1 more here. Hold the hollowness. Lift. Okay. Good. Hold. Think about hollowing through the belly. Let that leg start to quiver. We're just kind of warming up those hip muscles. Hold for 5. Good. With control, settle down. Awesome. Now you can let go of the tension. Go ahead and switch sides. Pull the right leg in as far as it wants to go. Keep the heel on the floor though, okay? And take the left leg out in front of you. Same thing, I want to set up first. So I want to hollow, arms out in front of me, shoulder blades move away from the chest, and here I go, I'm going to take that leg and I'm going to lift it. Maybe I want to even hollow more through my abdominals to feel that tension being built. Okay. Think about pushing the quad muscle down so there's a sense of contraction there. Hold for 5. Good. Without losing the tension, carefully set it down. And again, think of reaching through the leg as you lift. Rounding through the upper back. Good. Hold. Think about the leg starting to quiver. For 3. Good. Settle down. Without leaning backwards, try again. Follow the belly, lift. Think where you're lifting from. You're lifting from the thigh. Good, and set that leg down. Beautiful. All right, give your legs a little shake. And that felt like a lot of work for a lot of you. Don't worry. Okay, now we're going to come back to that 90-90 position that we did, which we're going to work on a little bit more range in that, so that hopefully this will feel a little bit better to you guys. So you're going to come back to that 90-90 position on the right. So what I'm going to do with my right leg is I'm going to rotate it outward until my shin bone is kind of roughly parallel to whatever's in front of you, the front of your mat, whatever it is. Now that right butt cheek's going to stay on the floor, and then with my left leg, I'm going to spin it around behind me until I have that 90-90 roughly position. Feel free to shorten this. If this feels like too much, feel free to bring it further away from you. Feel free to scoop it right behind you. Now, I'm going to work rotations of this back leg. So the right outer hip is going to stay on the floor the entire time. Now what we want to think about is really pushing that right outer butt cheek, outer knee, and shin bone into the floor. So I'm going to lean into it a little bit. I'm going to actually clasp my hands out in front of me. Now, as I push into it, I'm going to lean my torso a little forward, and now my back leg is going to lift. And then I'm going to circle it up and around in front of me until the heel taps right in front of that right shin bone. So my right butt cheek has not left the floor, but my left butt is up off the ground. Now, as I push into the right outer hip, I'm going to go right back to where I was. So I'm going to lift, and then I'm going to circle up and around back behind me until I return to the starting position. Okay? So we're going to try a few of those. I'm going to push the right outer hip into the floor, little lean, lift, circle up and around. Good. Tap the heel. Don't let the right butt cheek come off. Lift and circle. Good. Again, push down, lift, up and around. Tap, lift, circle, up and around. 2 more. Push into the outer hip, lift, circle. Good. Think about controlling that leg. Lift, circle. 1 more here. Push into the outer hip, lift, circle. You might get some cramping in the bum. That's okay. And then lift and circle. Great job. Beautiful. And then go ahead and swing that left leg out in front of you and give a little shake. Great job. You might get a lot of cramping in the outer hip. That's good. That's your glute med muscle, which for a lot of us is weak, which can lead to a lot of knee issues. So we want to get that hip really strong. All right. So here we go with the left side. So I'm going to create that rotation. Okay, bring the shin bone roughly parallel. Take my right leg wherever it feels good. Here, or swing it right back behind me. Now I want to work to create that pressure, pressing down into the left outer hip, the knee and the shin bone. Clasp my hands, little lean forward. Now as I lean, I lift and I circle. Good, and I tap. I lift, circle. Good, the entire time I'm pushing into that left outer hip. Lift, circle. So I'm trying to really drive that outer hip into the floor. Lift, circle. Good. And then push to lift. Tap, lift. Good. 2 more here. Really push into that left outer hip. Lift, circle. Don't let the outer hip come away from the floor. Lift, circle. Good. 1 more here. Push down to the outer hip. Lift, circle. Good. And lift and circle. Good. All right. Swing that right leg out in front of you. Give your legs a little shake. Again, you might be feeling a little bit of cramping in the outer hips. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. All right. So we're going to move on to this little sequence. So now we're going to take the hip joint through its full rotation. I'm going to do the first one facing you guys so you can see what my leg is doing, and then I'm going to kind of switch to the side. So you're going to make your way forward into hands and knees. Okay? For those of you who've kind of been following me about hand placement, you'll probably know by now where your hands go. For everyone else, I'm going to kind of give you the best instruction I can because not everyone's hand placement is going to be the same. So first of all, take your arms out in front of you and think that you want to have your elbows in line with your shoulders. So see how your wrists actually come a little wider than your shoulders. So go ahead and set your hands down. Okay, now what I want to think about doing is elbows under shoulders. And I actually want to take my hands and just turn them out just a little bit so that from the rotation of the shoulder, I can spin my inner biceps to face forward to the front of the room. All right, now we're going to take this circle with our right leg. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my knees under my hips. I'm going to extend my right leg over to the right, but I actually want to take this foot just a step out in front of me. Then from the inner thigh, I want to think of turning the inner thigh up until my toes point kind of up to the ceiling. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, this is where the tension in the abdominals is really, really important. So I want to do 2 things before I do anything. First step, I want to push the shoulder blades up to the ceiling until my upper back feels full, almost like a dome. Second step I want to do is I want to lift my rib cage up until my abdominals feel hollow. Now, once I have that, I'm going to firm that left outer hip in, and I'm going to go ahead and lift my right leg up, and then I'm going to circle it up and around back behind me. And here I am hitting. That's what happens when you live in a small space. Sorry, guys. Take that in front of me. So I'm going to push. I'm going to lift and circle up and around back behind me until my toes tap on the opposing side of that left foot. So let me show you from the side. So here I am out to the side, out in front of me, turn the inner thigh up. So I'm going to push the shoulder blades to the ceiling, hold the belly, and I'm going to lift and circle up and around until my toes tap on the opposing side of the left leg. Now I'm not going to let my low back arch. I'm going to hold my belly up. Then I'm going to lift the leg and circle all the way back to the starting position, turning my inner thigh up until my heel taps the floor and my toes point straight up. Okay, we're going to try 3 of these. So we're going through a full circle. Now what I want you to avoid is bending the elbows and swinging your leg like you're doing gymnastics. Okay, we're not swinging the leg. We're trying to control tension the entire time. So shoulder blades stay pushing to the ceiling, rib cage stays nice and hollow. Okay, so let's try 3 of these. I'm just going to move just a little bit forward here. All right, so here I go. I'm going to extend my right leg to the right. I'm going to take it out in front of me, and I'm going to turn that inner thigh up to the ceiling until my toes point relatively up. Now here I go. I'm going to push the shoulder blades to the ceiling, hollow the belly, firm the left outer hip in, and then I'm going to lift and circle. toes, tap. Good. Belly stays up, lift, circle. Turn the inner thigh up until the toes point up. Again, push the shoulder blades to the ceiling, lift, circle, tap, lift, circle, tap. Last one, push, lift, circle, tap, control the leg, lift, circle, and tap. Great job. Now I'm going to take this right foot, I'm going to step it forward right next to my right thumb. I'm going to stay down here in a nice little low lunge. Now I'm going to take the back knee, shift it back maybe just a little tiny step. Now I want to work to really push my right foot into the floor, and I want to come to a hollow position. I'm going to clasp my hands again, just like I did before in the 99 position. Now I want you to avoid the knee from buckling. Think that you're trying to open the knee just a little bit so your outer knee and your outer hip are working together. Now, as I clasp my hands, I want to create that same hollowness. Ribs in, shoulder blades away from the spine. Now I'm going to work to use my left butt cheeks. I'm going to push into that right foot. I'm going to lift my back leg up until it's straight. And I want to think about really contracting that left butt cheek to straighten my leg. Then carefully, I'm going to start to bend at the knee and drop down. Push off the front foot, lift for 2. Bend the knee, drop down. Push into the foot, lift, squeeze the left butt cheek for 3. Drop down, good. Lift 4. Drop down, lift 5. Drop down, lift 6. Drop down, lift 7. Drop down, lift 8. Drop down, 2 more, lift 9. Drop down, last one, lift 10. Drop down. Beautiful. Drop your hands, go ahead and step back. Great job. So when we're doing those lifts of the lunges, we want to really use the same butt cheek as the leg that's lifting and extending. Cool? All right, so now we're going to try the same thing the other side. So I'm going to work those rotations. All right, so I'm going to come back, hands and knees. Set those hands up. All right, I'm going to extend my left leg over towards the left. But I'm going to take the foot a little bit out in front of me. And I'm going to turn the inner thigh up to the ceiling till the toes point straight up. 3 priorities. Push the shoulder blades to the ceiling. Hold the belly up. Firm that right outer hip in. I'm going to create 3 rotations. So as I push, I lift the leg up. And then I circle up and around. Toes, tap. Push, lift, circle up and around. Turn the inner thigh up. Toes tap. Again, lift. Circle. Tap. Lift. Circle. Turn the inner thigh up. Good. Last one here. Push. Lift. Circle. Try not to bend the elbows or arch the low back. Tap. Lift. Circle. And tap. Great. Now I'm going to take that left foot, step it forward, right next to the left thumb. Take my back knee, shift it back a tiny amount, curl those back toes under, come to my hollow position. Hollow through my rib cage, shoulder blades away from spine, clasping my hands. Rooting down through that left foot. Feel like you're almost opening your knee, so your outer knee and outer hip are working together. So here I go. I'm going to push the foot, lift my back leg up. Use that right butt cheek to straighten my leg. Bend and drop. Lift. Bend, drop. Lift. Bend, drop. Keep that left big toe on the floor. Lift. Drop. And lift. Drop. Last 5. Lift. Drop. Lift. Drop. Lift. Drop. 2 more. Lift. Drop. Last one. Lift and drop. Beautiful. Go ahead and step back. Whew. Great job. All right. So our next little sequence here, we're going to tie in the abdominals again with kind of working, pulling the knee towards the chest and away from us. Now, common thing that I see when people do hip movements, or even combining hips and abdominals, they tend to use their low back too much, which means that the hip will actually never improve its range of motion. So today we're going to see if we can just move that leg without the interference or the participation from the low back. So you're going to need both of your blocks for this. So to make it really easy, let's set them up already. So just have them a little bit out in front of you, just to the tallest height, because we're going to use these here. Now, we're going to come back to hands and knees, but we're actually going to hover those knees up first. So I'm going to come back to that hands and knees position. Just want to make sure I don't kick anything. Okay. So here I am, hands and knees. Now, same priorities as before. I want to push the shoulder blades to the ceiling, and I want to hold my belly up. Now, as I curl my toes under, I want to float my knees. Now, as I float my knees, I want to float my right toes. Now, without letting my low back arch, I'm going to pull the right knee towards the chest. Now, I'm going to extend the leg back behind me with the toes still hovering. Now, notice how I'm not up here. I'm lowering that leg so my back doesn't arch. I'm going to pull the knee back in and extend. In and extend. For 4, extend. Keep those shoulder blades to the ceiling. For 5, good. For 6, good. For 7, good. For 8, and 9, and 10. Good. Now I'm going to drop that left knee, step the right foot back in between my hands. All right, I'm going to face forward for this first little bit. So here I am in my lunge. So now I'm going to take my blocks and I'm going to put them to the tallest height on either side of my right foot. Now notice where my right knee is. It's not here, okay? Where my knee comes more narrow than the hip. This is a little bit more of a pinchy sensation. I'm actually going to have it a little bit wider. Okay, so my knee is more towards kind of like the right armpit. Now I'm going to make fists. I'm going to put those down on my blocks. Now with these fists, I want to think of rolling my elbows straight back. Now that same hollow position that we've been working with, I'm going to push my shoulder blades to the ceiling. I'm going to hollow through my ribs. I'm going to push my fists down into the blocks. I'm going to try to pick that right foot up and pull my knee up to the armpit and hold. Good for 5, 3, 1. Carefully set down. So let me show you from the side. We're going to do 5 of these. So pushing down through my fists. I'm going to hollow through my back. I'm going to push and I'm going to lift and hold for 5. 1. Set down. Don't lose the tension. Keep the hollowness. Lift. Good. Set down. Really use the low belly. Push down. Lift. Hold. Good. Drop down. 2 more. Round. Lift. Good. Drop down. Last one here. Hollow and lift. And 1. Set down. Beautiful. So you can see, in order to lift the leg, we have to have really strong hip flexors and a really strong abdominal core. Now, if your foot didn't lift, or it only lifted for like a second, or it did this kind of like ricochet thing where it kind of like lifted and then dropped, that's okay. You'll get stronger with time the more that you do this. It's just telling you that your hip flexors need to get a little stronger, as well as the relationship with your abdominals and your hip flexors. Okay? Don't worry about that. So let's try the left side. So have those blocks handy again. Okay? We're going to come back to that hands and knees position. Okay? Now I'm going to hover my knees and I'm going to work with my left leg. And again, I don't want my low back to arch. So set my hands up, turn my upper arm bones forward, push the shoulder blades to the ceiling, curl the toes, hover my knees, just a little hover. And I'm going to hover my left toes. I'm going to pull the knee into the chest and extend for 2. Good. For 3. Good. Really use the low abdominals for 4. Good. For 5. Good. For 6. Good. For 7. Good. for 8, good, 9, good, and 10, good. Drop the right knee, take that left foot, step it forward, right next to the left thumb. Go ahead and grab your blocks. Beautiful. Okay, now again, my knee is more towards my armpit. I'm gonna make my fists, and I'm gonna do 5 of my lift-offs with my left foot now. We all have a weaker side, and your weaker side might make itself known when you're doing this type of work. It's okay. It's how we get stronger, by doing this unilateral or 1 foot at a time work. So here I'm gonna make my fists. I'm gonna hug my elbows in. I'm gonna round through the upper back and the abdominals. Then I'm gonna use the low abdominals and the hip crease to take that left foot and lift and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Set down. Hollow. Again, lift. 2, 1. Set down. Again, hollow. Lift. 3, 2, 1. Set down. 2 more there, guys. Hollow. Lift. Really think about pulling the thigh up to the armpit. 2, 1. Drop down. Last one here. Hollow. Lift. 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. All right, take a little break. Take a swig of water if you need it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sweating. Sweating. All right. So our next little piece is going to work a little bit more with the hamstrings. So I kind of box the hamstrings in with the hips. Some people do them separate. I kind of box them in. To me, the hamstrings are equally as part of the hips as the hips are of the hamstrings. So we're going to do a little bit of work to just strengthen those hamstrings a little bit, combining a little bit of hip work as well. So we're going to work on some balancing to work that glute medius muscle. That's your outer butt cheek. It's probably, to me, in my opinion, a little bit more important than the glute max because it stabilizes the pelvis. So we want to really get that outer hip really strong. So we're going to start with a little bit of a hamstring stretch. So you're going to need both of your blocks for this. And you're going to come to something called half split, okay? Don't be alarmed by the word split. It's only half split. So I'm going to need both of my blocks here. They're going to be to my tallest height. And I'm going to have my knees kind of relatively under my hips. And then I'm going to take my right leg and I'm going to swing it through. Okay? So my left knee is underneath my left hip and my right leg is swinging through straight. And then my wrists are kind of under my shoulders. And I just kind of like to lightly graze my blocks here. I don't need to collapse into them. I just like to lightly hit them. Now I'm going to flex my ankle and pull my toes up to my kneecaps. But in order to pull up on that hamstring, I want to shift my hips back a little bit, almost like a little hinge. So instead of being upright, I want to shift back through the hips and I want to pull my chest forward. Okay? Now we did this move in the series part 1 of the hips, and I talked about where you should feel a stretch in the hamstring. So if you're feeling the belly of the muscle or the meat of the muscle, great. If you're feeling anything in the back of the knee or the base of the bum, this is a big no-no. Put a little bend in the knee, okay? Your hamstring is trying to tell you it doesn't want to do this, okay? So listen to it, okay? We're going to take 2 breaths here, in through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose. Okay, we're going to come back to our fists. So I'm going to go ahead and put my fists back down on my blocks. I'm going to hug my elbows in. Now you can imagine what we're going to do here if you've been following along. So now I'm going to try to lift that leg up off the floor. So this is where I got to really use my abdominals and my hip crease muscles to get that leg up. So as I sit back into the hips, I want to create that same action of rounding through my shoulder blades, hollowing my belly. Now as I push down in my fist, I'm going to try to float that leg up. Good. Don't worry how high it goes. Hold. Set down with control. Okay? Don't worry if it didn't lift. Just try to work the action, creating tension. So hollow the belly, push into the fists, lift. Good. Set down. Some people find this one a little bit easier than lifting the foot. 3 more there. Hollow, lift. Good. Set down. 2 more. Hollow, lift. Good. Set down. 1 more. hollow, really scrunch the low belly, lift, good, and set down. Great job. Now, we're gonna put that right foot back into like that lunge position. Now, here's where the balancing is gonna come in. I'm gonna take my blocks out in front of that right foot, and I'm gonna push off my right foot to bring my chest parallel to the floor and extend my left leg back. And below, you might have to adjust the camera. Actually, no, you don't. No, you're good. Okay, so basically I was down here, so I'm gonna push off the right foot, and here I am, chest parallel to the floor, back leg extended. Now notice how my knee is bent. I don't want to straighten it. I don't want to stretch the hamstring here. I actually want to contract it. Now I don't want to be too knee heavy here, meaning my knee tracks forward. I want to shift back in my hips, extend my back leg back behind me, pull my chest forward, but keep my ribs up. Okay, and I want to try to be parallel to the floor. Now, you're going to feel a lot happening in your hamstring, but I more so want to focus on that right outer hip. Think about hugging it in, and then think about reaching your head and your heel in opposite directions. Now I want to try to get that hamstring working. So I'm going to put my fingertips up on my blocks, and then all I want to do is lift my chest up a little bit until my fingers come up off the blocks. Then I want to hinge back and bring my fingertips back to the blocks. Requires a little bit of balance. So I'm going to lift and drop for 2. Lift. Woo, my balance today. Drop for 3. Good. Lift. Drop for 4. One more there, guys. Lift. Woo. And drop for 5. Great. Big step back. Drop the knee. Step back. Woo. Great. Okay. Everything on the other side. Now, don't worry if when you lifted your hands off, your balance went all crazy. Mine was a little off today. Sometimes balance is like on point, and some days it just sucks. So don't worry. All right, so we're gonna try everything on the left side. So we're gonna come back to that half split action. So I'm gonna take my blocks. I'm gonna take my left leg. I'm gonna swing it through. Okay, my right knee is gonna be under my hip. And I'm just gonna be lightly grazing those blocks. Ankle flexed, toes towards the kneecap. I want to think about sitting back in those hips as I launch my chest forward. Try to be nasal with your breathing here, in through the nose, out through the nose. Nice, smooth breaths. Get that hamstring to work for you instead of against you. And again, if you're feeling the back of the knee or the base of the bum, you put a bend. Okay? One more big breath there. All right, now I'm going to make those fists. Okay, elbows hug in. Hollow through my belly. Lift the leg. Good. Set down with control. Hollow through the upper back. Lift. Good. Set down. Try not to lean backwards. Hollow through the belly. Lift. Use the low belly and the hip crease to lift. Drop down. 2 more there. Hollow. Lift. Drop down, last one, hollow, lift. Good, drop down, beautiful. Put that knee on top of the ankle. Here we're gonna go up to our balancing position. So I'm gonna take my blocks out in front of me. I'm gonna push off that left leg until I come up, chest parallel to the floor, back leg extended. I'm not up here. I'm lowering the leg so my low back isn't arching. Left knee is bent, hips are shifting back, chest is pulling forward. And I want to try 5 of my little lifts. So I want to push down to that left big toe. I want to lift, hinge, and drop. Good. Lift and drop. Again, lift and drop. 2 more. Lift and drop. Last one. Lift, hinge, and drop. Beautiful. Big step back. Set the knee down carefully, and then go ahead and take a seat. All right. Whew. It's not easy class. It looks easy on paper, but then when you do it, it's like, oh boy. All right. Last little strength piece that we're going to do here. So this is now going to hit more of those outer and inner rotators of the hip. So more so the outer and inner, which for a lot of us are really, really hard to get to. It's kind of easy to find our quads, somewhat easy to find our hamstrings and our glutes, but those outer is really, really tough. So this is going to help, hopefully, for you guys to find that. It's not easy. You might get a lot of cramping when you do this. I will kind of warn you on that, but I want you guys to know that cramping is not bad. Take a second, grab a swig of water, and then rejoin when you can. So the position I'm going to come to is first I'm going to need my block. And I'm going to take my, I'm just going to take my left leg first. And I'm going to rotate my left leg out just like that 99 position. So just kind of sitting here, flex the foot, rotate outward. Okay. So it's almost as if I was like in that diamond shape, but just swinging over towards the left. Now my block, you might have to move it and play around with it, but I'm going to take it out to the side till its lowest height. And then what I'm going to do with my right leg is I'm going to have it just hanging out in front of that block. And this might have to move around a little bit. Everyone's going to be different. So basically I'm in this position where my left leg is rotated outward and my right leg is rotated inward. Now that ankle is going to be flexed. So the inner edge of my foot is roughly on the floor. Now to help me, I actually want to lean a little bit more into that left outer hip. And I want to think about pushing that left outer hip, the knee, and the shin bone in towards the floor. And then I'm going to come back to that clasping hands position. Now let me just show you one first so that we can start to do it together. And if you want to practice with me, feel free to do that. So as I lean, I'm still going to hollow my belly. And then what I want to do with my leg is I want to lift it up and then over the block until it taps on the opposite side. Then as I lift, I want to lift and bring it up and over. It is really tough. It's so hard for me. So don't worry if you're struggling. You're probably gonna get a big butt cramp. Now, one of the things I want you guys to do your best to try to avoid is when you send the leg up and over, try not to bend the knee. We wanna try to keep that leg straight. Now, if your block is too high and you hit it, don't worry. Get rid of the block and just visualize kind of going up and over something. Because the higher you go, the harder it's going to be. So if the block is too high for you, chuck it. Okay? All right, let's try this. We're going to try 5 because honestly, 5 is enough. You'll see. All right, I'm going to be really slow. So I'm going to set my block up or without. Here I go. Left outer hip, leg straight. I'm going to lean. I'm going to hollow. And then trying to maintain that leg straight, I'm going to lift. And then go up, behind my block, and then lift and up and over. There's 1. Good, see, 5's gonna be tough. Lift, good, and lift. Oh man, 2, good. Lift, good, lift. Really use that left outer hip. 2 more, lift, good. Lift, try not to bend the knee. Oh man, 1 more. Ball's talking at me. Lift. Oh, good. And then lift. Oh, good. See, it's so tough. So 5 is enough. Now, for me, I get cramps everywhere. I get cramps in the left outer hip because I'm really rooting it down. And then I'm getting a huge cramp along the left or the right outer leg as well. All right, let's switch to the other side. Whew. Now, again, I will say this. We all have a weaker side. So don't worry if one side feels like just, wow, it feels so tough compared to the other. That's just the nature of being alive, to be honest. All right. So now I'm going to take my right leg, kind of in that diamond shape, rotate it out. Left leg, oh boy, this is my weaker side. All right. So I'm going to adjust myself. I'm going to really take advantage of that outer hip because you're pushing down into that, creating tension on this side to make lifting this leg a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but a little bit easier. Okay, so here I am, clasping my hands. I'm going to hollow, and then I'm going to lift, up and over, tap. Lift, tap. Nice and slow. Lift, tap, lift, tap. Good. Lift, tap, lift, tap. Trying to bend the knee as much as you can. 2 more. Lift, tap, lift, tap. 1 more. Lift, tap, and lift, tap. Should we do 1 more set? Yeah, we should. I'm glad you agree. We do 1 more set of 5 each leg, and then we're going to work towards a nice little pull down. Really good job, guys. Now, again, if you're really struggling hard with this and you can't even get your leg up and over, what I want you to do instead is if the leg wouldn't go up and over, I don't want you to just not do anything. What I'd rather you focus on is just lifting the leg and holding. Okay, so just lifting the leg and holding, and really focus on using that outer hip. So if that variation was too tough, just see if you can lift the leg. Okay, so here we go, 5 more. Ugh. I'm dreading it. You know when you dread certain exercises? In my mobility practice, this is the one I dread the most. All right, into the outer hip, but I do it anyway. Clasp the hands, hollow the belly. So I'm gonna lift and up. Behind me, lift. Good, see once you create tension, the leg actually lifts easier. 2. Good. 3. Good, 2 more. Lift. 4, whew, it starts to get bad around 3. Good, last one, lift. And 5, lift, and whew. Beautiful. All right, same the other side, then cool down. Whew. All right, here I go. Set my block up. For those of you who are doing a lot of squatting in your workouts, this is a great prep piece to get you ready for a squat, to take a lot of pressure off the knees. All right, last side here. Set myself up. Okay, ankle flexed, lean into that right outer hip, hollow the belly, lift. Whew. Lift. Good. Lift, really use that left outer hip. Lift. 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 2 more. Lift. Lift. Whew. 1 more. Lift. Bam, and lift and drop. Woo! All right, give your legs a little shake. Let's actually come back to that diamond shape for a second. Just come back to that diamond shape that you were in. Maybe you want to kind of fold over a little bit. Grab your feet, let your knees just kind of fall open and hang out here just for a moment. Good. All right, guys. Beautiful. Okay. Now you're going to come up to, we're going to actually sit in a squat position. So we're actually not going to take a squat. We're just going to sit in a squat position. So you're going to go ahead and grab both of your blocks. You're going to stack them one on top of the other. Okay. And then I'm just going to, sounds really fun. I'm just going to sit. So I'm just going to sit. So I'm going to sit on both blocks. And then I just want to bring my legs to what would be considered my squat position. Now my squat position is actually quite wide. Yours might be a little bit more narrow. Your toes might face forward. I don't know, it depends. It depends on what feels the most natural to you. But mine is a little bit wider. And then as I'm here, I just want to lean my torso forward just a little bit, really press down through my big toes and think about opening my knees some. And I just want to hang out here for a moment. Good. Just find a few moments to breathe. And I want to take my left elbow and I want to press it to the inside of my left knee. And I want to push into that until I can turn open to the right and see if I can look up at that thumb. Okay. Good. And then I want to come back to center, do the same thing other side, push into that right knee with that right elbow, turn the chest open. Look up at that top arm. Take a breath. Let's do 1 more each. Left elbow, press into left knee, turn the chest open, take the top arm up. Come back to neutral. 1 more here. Right elbow into the right knee, turn the chest open, arm up. Good. All right. Hands clasped behind the head. We're going to take a little bit of an arching and a rounding now in our squat. So with the rounding, you might feel like you're going to fall backwards. So really press into your feet and create a little bit of a lean forward through the round. We're just going to release that back body a little bit. So hands behind the back of the head. I want you to create an arch. So arch up and over. So you're trying to touch your collarbones to the ceiling and then open your elbows. Now as you round, hollow through your belly, tuck your chin to your chest and hug your elbows in towards your temples. Let's add the breathing. Inhale. Arch up and over. Out breath. Inhale, arch up and over. Open those elbows. Out breath, round, elbows to temples. 2 more here. Inhale, arch up and over, really spread those knees open. Out breath, round it out. 1 more here. Inhale, arch, and out breath. Round. Great job. All right, we're gonna go ahead and proceed to come onto our backs. So take your time to come up off of your blocks. Go ahead and come down onto your backs. And if you feel like you need something behind your head to support you, put a pillow there, a block there. So go ahead and come on down. You might need to take a block with you just for that head. Couple things, if your head looks like this, you've got a big arch in your neck, your shoulders are popped forward, you're gonna need something behind your head, otherwise you will not. All right, beautiful, okay. So with my feet flat on the floor, I'm gonna take my left leg and I'm gonna slide it out straight on the ground. Now, as I slide that left leg out on the ground, I wanna feel like the left side of my lower back is melting towards the floor. Then without using my hands, okay, I want to use that hip crease to pull that right knee up towards the chest. Okay, and I want to think about reaching those legs in opposite directions. This is where you're going to use a little bit more muscle here. So from the right low belly, I'm going to pull the right knee into the chest as I extend my left leg out straight, and I want to keep thinking of reaching those legs in opposite directions. Now, your left knee might have to bend a little bit, and that's completely okay. But I still want you to create the action of reaching the legs away from you in opposite directions. You're going to hold here. Good. And then go ahead and relax the tension. Clasp your hands around the front of the right shin bone and just let that leg come on in. So we're doing it without tension now. Okay, but really still think about that left leg, pushing that back of the left thigh in towards the floor. Okay, now we're going to come to a twist. So I'm going to put this right foot back on the ground. I'm going to use that right foot to shift my hips over towards the right. So my hips are going to go over towards the right side of my mat. Now, my left outer foot is going to rotate to the floor, so the outer edge of the foot is on the ground, so that I can take my right knee and cross it across my body. Okay? And you may even be able to hold that right knee with the left hand, but I don't want you to pull that right shoulder blade up off the floor. You're twisting too much. Keep that shoulder blade on the ground and just let that knee cross across the body. Just trying to release that outer hip a little bit and hold here for a breath or two. Good, and then slowly swing yourself back through the center. Use that foot to square your hips back off. And then we're going to do everything the other side. So I'm going to first take my right leg. I'm going to slide it out straight. I'm going to hang out there for a moment. Let the right side of the lower back come to the floor and gradually work to make my right leg strong. Now, without using my hands, I want to think about using my abdominals to pull that left leg up to the chest. And then I want to think about reaching the legs in opposite directions. So pulling the left leg towards me as I reach that right leg away from me. So I'm creating that strong kind of push-pull type effort. I'm going to keep holding there as I keep that tension. And then I'll relax the tension. I'll clasp my hands around. I'll pull that leg in, and I'll just settle here. Good. And just really find your breath. We did a lot of sort of strength work for the hips today. Okay. We want to give them an opportunity to calm down. Good. And then go ahead and put that left foot on the floor. And we're going to make our twist. And I'm going to shift my hip over to the left. The outer edge of my right foot comes to the floor, so I can easily cross my left leg across the body, and my left arm kind of spirals out to the side, but my collarbones are still parallel to the ceiling. And I want to keep maintaining that left shoulder blade glued to the floor as I cross that leg over. Big breath. Good. And then slowly come back to center, square your hips back off. One more little stretch here, and then we're done. So I lied to you. You are going to need a block behind your head. So if you don't have your block, go ahead and grab it now. If you do have it, go ahead and put it behind your head. Okay, your nice little pillow. Okay, now from here, we're gonna take thread the needle. We're just gonna release all that hip stuff, release the muscle that covers the sciatic nerve. This is so helpful when your low back feels cranky. So for some of you, you're gonna need the block. For some of you, you aren't gonna need the block. Just be mindful that your head isn't in a big arch position. So I'm gonna take my right ankle, I'm gonna cross it over the top of the left thigh. I am not gonna jam this knee open. This makes your pelvis unlevel. So start with the amount of rotation you actually have so your hips are level. Then I'm going to pick my left leg up. I'm going to take my hands, clasp it around the back of the left thigh. I'm going to pull that leg into the chest and let my head descend down as well as my shoulder blades. So I'm keeping those shoulder blades back into the floor. If you cannot do that, this is where you're going to need your block behind your head. And I want to think collarbones broad, upper back broad, and I want to think about pulling that left leg into the chest, and I can experiment with where I like my left leg. Do I like it up high? Do I like it up low? Whatever feels good for you as you pull that left leg in, and you're going to take some nasal breaths here. In through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose. Good. Think about reaching your tailbone to the bottom of your mat so your low back gets long. Go ahead and release the hands, put that foot back on the floor, uncross. Good. Same thing other side, left leg crosses over again. I'm not jamming the knee open. I'm starting with my hips level. Then I pick that right leg up, and then I go ahead and clasp my hands behind. I pull the leg into the chest, and then I let my upper back fall to the floor as my collarbones become nice and broad. Shoulders back. Reach to the tailbone, letting the low back get long. Pull that thigh bone into the chest and breathe here. Try not to force the left knee open. Smooth breaths. Again, you can experiment with where you like that right leg. You can have it up high, you can have it lower. Pull that leg in, take a breath. Good. Release the hands, foot back on the floor. Good. And if you want to just take a moment, maybe hug your knees into the chest. Maybe you want to do little circles with your knees, just to give your pelvis one last little massage. Maybe go in the opposite direction. Awesome. All right, guys, when you're ready, you can stay where you are on your back and chill there for a moment, or go ahead and roll yourself over onto one side and prop yourself up. All right, guys, there you go. There's part 2 of our 2-part series on the hips. Honestly, this could go on and on and on. There's still so much more that we can do, and we will. We'll explore the hips definitely more in the future, probably in more detail as well, a little bit more strengthening work as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. You won't get answers if you don't ask questions. If you have anything you'd like to know, or you're curious about, or something felt troubling for you today, or something felt really good, and you want to know how to do it, in your own home by yourself, let me know. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for being here today. You're welcome, Lisa. I can't see that other name.
I think it's Helen. Or Hel.
No, it's not Helen.
Someone
Lisa.
said.
Oh, that's my Helen. That was tough. Yeah, of course it was. It was tough, Helen, just for you. And then Vera says, thanks. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's Helen. I know it's you. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday. Get outside today, guys. It will be so good for your mental and emotional health. Take a moment to get outside. Maybe you can want to do this class again later. I don't know. Maybe do it outside. Who knows? All right, guys. Have a great Sunday. Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. You're welcome, Leanne. Yeah, all right, guys. Thank you so much. See you guys next time. Hope you have a great Sunday. Thank you. Bye.